Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jay, and what I got for you today and what you're looking at right now is the Yongnuo 23mm f1.4 lens that is for the crop factor. So I'm using it on my Sony A6700 right now, and this is what it looks like. Now this lens goes for about $275, which is extremely affordable and puts it right on par with the Viltrox, which also makes a lens, and I'm going to show you what the Viltrox looks like in a second so we can compare the two. They're about the same price point. Now, Sigma also makes one of these lenses, but it retails for about $530, which is almost double what this lens costs. So I have not got my hands on the Sigma lens yet, so I can't say how good that is. So let me show you what the Viltrox looks like, and we can compare the two. So let me just hold still here for a second, and while I'm holding still here, I will use this quick segment here to compare with the Viltrox. So now you're looking at both the Yongnuo and the Viltrox side by side, so we can do a sharpness inspection at f1.4. So the camera is right in front of me on the desk on a little mini tripod. You can kind of see that from the main camera angle. Just a quick disclaimer, Yongnuo did send me this lens, but they have no input whatsoever. They're not looking at the video beforehand. They're not telling me what to say. It's just I use the lens for as long as I want. I test it how I want, and then I make the review how I want. So just in case you guys are wondering, they did send me this lens for free, so I didn't pay for it. But there's, no money exchanged, like as far as, sponsored video or whatever. It's not the case. So I just wanted to show you the body here on the Yongnuo real quick to compare it to the Viltrox. So you can see they both have pedal style lens hoods. The Viltrox is a little physically smaller, as you can see here. They both have manual lens apertures. That's where the features pretty much end on the Viltrox. Other than the USB-C firmware update, it does have that as well. Now the Yongnuo has a custom function button here. It also has the manual focus autofocus switch, or you can use this switch to control whether or not it's in remote control mode or not, because this lens actually comes with a little remote as well. In addition to the manual aperture ring here, you have the click and declick feature. So you can turn the click on, and then you can get that. Or you can turn it off for video, and now it's nice and smooth. Now, it does not have a lock, so if you want to use it in auto mode, you got to put it in A, and then when it's in A, you can control the aperture from the camera. The Viltrox is the same in that regard. There's a little bit of a hard lock to get to the A, but it's not stiff enough. I'd like that to be harder than that. I'd also like to see a switch to make it stay on A mode. That's just my opinion. If a lens has an aperture ring, I want that click on there to lock it, because I don't really like using it manually very often. Only in manual focus situations would I ever even do that, to be honest, but that is what it is. Now, you also have this nice rubber gasket on the back of the Yongnuo lens, and you can see just how large that rear lens element is. If I show you the Viltrox real quick, you can see the rear lens element looks a little bit smaller, but it might just be because of that square plastic that they have there, kind of like shielding it a little bit. And the USB-C port for the update on the Viltrox is right there. On the Yongnuo, the update is right there under that little rubber cover. So the Viltrox does not have the rubber gasket on the back here. So this is what it looks like mounted up to my A6700 here. And you can see it's a nice fit. Feels good in the hands. It's not too heavy. It's a really nice lens, and because it has an effective 35mm, this is a really good lens for street photography, food photography, things like that. That's what I tend to use lenses like this for. Now, it has a minimum focus distance of 10.8 inches or about 30 centimeters, which isn't bad. I wish it was a little bit better than that, but that's not that bad. So that's basically how close you can get to something, 10.8 inches, and still have accurate focus, on the subject. So when you're getting close to food and stuff like that, it would be nice to get a little closer for smaller objects like cookies and things like that. But for like a pizza or something, like this works really well. This lens also has a fluorine coating on the front lens element, so that'll help like repel water, oil, and dust and dirt. A lot of the Sony lenses come with that fluorine lens coating as well. So just for a quick comparison, the weight, the Viltrox does weigh a little bit less. So we're looking at 12.8 ounces, 369 grams for the Yongnuo versus 9.17 ounces or 260 grams. And with that comes the smaller 52mm filter thread, whereas the Yongnuo has a 58mm filter thread. All right, guys, I just want to do a quick tutorial on how this lens works because it has that built-in Wi-Fi and this cool remote. On the side of the lens over here, you have the selector switch and you have the function button here. So depending on where you have this selector switch and you turn the camera on and hold the function button, will decide what mode the lens is in. So for example, if I put the selector switch in position 2 like it is right now, shut the camera off, and now all I got to do is hold the function button on the lens when I turn the camera on. And you can see, because I held it, it was in position 2 when I did that. Now the switch is acting as a focus, manual focus switch. You can see the manual focus icon coming up right here. So if you want to set the lens up for like Wi-Fi or Bluetooth pairing with this remote, what you have to do is shut it off, put the lens in position 1 here on the lens, holding the function button down, turning the camera on. All right, so you can see the aperture is orange. You're supposed to get that orange indication when it's actually in the correct mode. So we got the aperture orange there, so that means it should be in pairing mode now. So now, let me just screw this little quarter 20 they gave here. I'll actually screw it on right here, like so. All right, so now if I hold this button down, it should connect to the 23mm. All right, so now you can see it paired to the 23mm. And get a little closer view. All right, so how this works is if you press the knob, it'll switch to whatever mode you want. So this mode right here is aperture mode. All right, so you can see there I have it set to the aperture. So it's actually changing the aperture on the lens, which is kind of cool. So you can change the aperture if you want. Let's put that at 1.4. If you press the button again, it's going to cycle. Now you can see it's set to manual focus there. See the MF? So now if I turn this, it's going to actually move the focus. All right, so now if you watch the LCD screen on the camera, you can see that I am changing the focus. See how the focus is changing? So what I'm going to do is I am going to focus on the Pocket 3 that I have in front of me there. All right, so I want you to see this right now, but keep in mind that I'm going to focus on the Pocket 3 and then I'm going to focus on the background. So I'll show you what that looks like in a second, but I can't focus on both while I'm doing this. So what you got to do is focus on what you want. So I'm going to use the magnify zoom, which I have custom configured to C2 button here. So if I hit the C2 button, I can scroll over to the Pocket 3 and zoom in. Right there is perfect. All right, so now I got the focus set for the Pocket 3. Now what I can do is I can hit this button right here, long press this button, and that will assign an A focus point. So now the focus for A is set to the Pocket 3. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to scroll over here and focus on the background a little bit. So I'm just going to move this to that thing there, and I'm going to hold down this button, and it's going to add the B. So now I got focus A and B set. So notice how there's a line in the middle of A and B. That's the speed of the focus. So I'm going to leave it at full speed right now and show you how this works. And then we will slow the speed down. So I'm just going to hit record. And check this out. I'm just going to hit the A button. And it just switched to the Pocket 3. I'll show you this video footage, guys, so you can see the 4K video. And now if I hit the B button, it focuses on the background. See that? So again, this is a really cool way to do this because I don't have to have this on the camera. I could have this in my hand in my pocket, for example, and still get this same effect. So now if I press here, see how it says SP? That stands for the speed of the focus. So you can see how that line is getting smaller. So now I'm going to slow the focus way down like that. And I'm going to do it again. So let me just hit the B button. It's going to go to the background, but this time it's going to go much slower. Bringing it back to the foreground there. Go back to the background, so you can see I think I misclicked the button, so I'm just doing it one more time. And I'll go one more time to the foreground. There we go. So you can see how nice and slow you can get it to go. And that's pretty much how this works. So it's just a tool that you can use, and it works pretty darn good. And you can lock it also if you hit it one more time, and then nothing will change when you turn the knob. If you go back to one more time, you're back to aperture mode, so you can control the aperture. And then here we are back to focus. And again, we can, at any time, if you just long press A or B, that will set the focus point for you. So, by the way, make sure you turn this off when you're done using it, but there's another button here, and this acts as the function button. So this is like the same function button that's on the lens. So you can program this and it'll behave that way, which is quite cool. So you could set that for autofocus, manual focus switch, for example, or focus hold, which is what it is by default on the lenses, on the Sony lenses. And I just wanted to show you that 1/4-20 on the back. What are you doing, buddies? What are you doing, you big oaf? Come on, get down. And then on this side is where the USB-C port is to charge this unit up. But you can see the build quality is pretty good on this little thing. All right, guys, that's pretty much how this remote works with the lens. And if you have any questions, ask below in the comments. I'm happy to help. Really impressed with the Yongnuo lenses so far. I've used the 11mm, which is also an aps-c lens. It's excellent. And I also tested the 85mm f1.8, which is a full frame lens, and that lens is awesome, especially for the money. So again, as far as like value to the dollar, Yongnuo is crushing it right now. Viltrox is also crushing it, but some lenses are better than others. And this 23mm Viltrox is a little older of a lens, so we'll see how it compares as far as the pixel peeping goes. All right, guys, we're gonna go over the lab photos, and then we're gonna hit up some real world photos so I can show you what this lens actually does in the real world. I took pictures of food, some landscapes. I got a bunch of pictures of my dog Buddy. So guys, here we go. We got the Viltrox on the right, and we have the Yongnuo on the left. And you can see, based on this lab scene, it looks like, honestly, I'm quite surprised the Viltrox has less distortion than the Yongnuo. Considering that the Yongnuo is larger, I thought that it would have less distortion, but it does not. However, it does have way better sharpness, as you could see here, wide open at f1.4. It's not even comparable. The Yongnuo is night and day way more sharp. I mean, not even close. You could see the vignetting is also a little bit, which is the darkening in the corners, is a little bit more severe, it looks like, in this test. But just look at the corner sharpness here. You could see on the circuit board up here versus here, not even close. And then the dollar bill, again, absolutely remarkable. So the Yongnuo is by far way sharper than the Viltrox. So that's worth noting, and that's what the purpose of the lab testing is. In the real world, it's a little harder to tell, to be honest. They look very similar, but when you break it down with a test like this, that's where like the rubber meets the road. So let's zoom in at f4 and see how they compare. So now you can see Viltrox again on the right-hand side. You can see it looks a little bit more apples to apples here. They're both very, very sharp, and they both look very good. Now, the corner sharpness is still not quite as good on the Viltrox, but at f4 it sharpens up enough where it's kind of like it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? It's like good enough sort of thing. So that's what we're looking at there. All right, guys, so looking at the minimum focus, this is a very difficult test. This lens has a decent minimum focus distance of about, 10.8 inches or 30 centimeters. The Viltrox is pretty much the same. So again, when you're at the minimum focus distance, you really are pushing the optics to the limit when it comes to sharpness and fringing and stuff like that. All right, guys, so here is the minimum focus distance test, and both lenses did okay. I would say the sharpness is not really that good, and they're both suffering from some fringing. The Viltrox has more of that purple-red fringing, and the Yongnuo has more of that green-looking fringing here, as you can see. And if you look at the bokeh ball renderings, they look very, very similar. Not much of a difference there. There's a little bit more contrast, I guess you could say, in the Viltrox bokeh ball renderings, but not much, just a little bit. Does have a little bit of a halo, but again, not too much. All right, guys, so here's what f4 looks like at the minimum focus distance and at 200%. Let me put it back to 100%. You can see here the fringing is pretty much gone on both lenses, and they both look very good. Now, the bokeh balls do have that like kind of an octagoning shape. They both suffer from that. They both have 9-blade apertures, so wide open, they're going to look nice and round. And even at like f1.8, f2, they're going to look for the most part round. But by the time you get to f4, you are going to get a little bit of octagoning on very small light sources, which is what this is. They're like Christmas tree lights, so they're very small light sources. Larger light sources don't suffer as much from that octagoning effect, I've noticed over the years. Seems to work pretty good. Tracking it. This is the Yongnuo. Doing a flare comparison. At f1.4, wide open. All right, guys, just to wrap up the lab testing. So the Yongnuo has significantly more distortion than the Viltrox, which I was honestly kind of surprised by. However, the Yongnuo is far superior in the sharpness area when it comes to the whole lab scene. Now, when we're looking at minimum focusing, both lenses struggle a little bit with fringing in that regard, but as we stop down, the Yongnuo takes over in sharpness. And at f4, the fringing goes away for both lenses completely, but the sharpness edge definitely goes to the Yongnuo. All right, guys, let's look at some real-world photos here. Now, I also used this lens for my beginner's guide for the Pocket 3. Awesome camera, by the way. And this is what that photo looks like. This is actually the original photo, and I edited it for the thumbnail to look like this. Now, I just took a couple of pictures of cookies, looking down, just holding the camera here. My mom made these delicious cookies, and they are very, very good. And you can see here, you zoom in, just all the detail, color, clarity is fantastic. This had like pistachio on it, so it's actually like green. This was my favorite cookie out of all the ones my mom made this year. And the chocolate chip is just a classic. So you can see here just how good that looks. So, and again, the desk just blurs out. That was this desk here that I was recording, that I was using for these photos here. Now, I got this deli slicer. A friend of mine gave it to me. He was moving and he was downsizing. This thing's probably from like the 60s, but it works awesome. It's like all stainless steel, so how could I not? I was like, yeah, dude, I'll take it. So check it out. I sliced up that rib roast. And by the way, these photos look fantastic. You see the slicer in the background and the, you know, the subject's popping there, like the delicious prime rib, you know, sliced like deli meat. And I made a cheesesteak with it, guys. Look at this cheesesteak. I got the best bread from one of the delis down the road. It's like Arthur Avenue style bread. And I cropped it in a bit already so you can just see how good this cheesesteak looks. I actually used half sharp cheddar and half smoked Gouda for my cheese sauce, and sauteed some onions and then just mixed in the prime rib. I just sliced it up, mixed it in, stirred it up, and then threw it on the toasted roll. And I mean, guys, it was the best cheesesteak I've ever had in my life. Enough talking about the food. We got more food to come later. Let's show you more what this lens can do. So I was just walking around at work and stuff, and I took a couple of photos here to show you. This is just looking down a hallway, and you can see 24mm is a pretty wide angle view, so it gives you some pretty nice depth when it comes to a shot like this. Now, here's just my car looking at the dashboard. Again, this wide angle lens, fairly wide angle, mind you. It's not like insanely wide like the 11mm Yongnuo, for example. And just sitting in my, seat, I was able to get this shot of the instrument cluster. And by the way, my car gets incredibly good gas mileage. 40 miles to the gallon average is remarkable, to be honest, these days. It's a 1.4 turbo Volkswagen Jetta, in case you're wondering. It's just a base model car pretty much, but I love it. I think it's one of the best bang for the buck cars out there. So anyways, check this out. This was a cool sunset. I focused down here on this puddle, and I thought it came out really good. This was at f4. And by the way, the EXIF data, guys, is up here on the top left if you want to see the camera settings. So the ISO was at 5,000 for this shot. It was pretty dark out. Now, here's just one out the window, you know, the windshield of my car. I was just driving around, figured I would get some night shots. It was a pretty cool WRX in front of me. Then I was driving to work and I decided to just take a few shots while I was driving, you know, just with the camera like resting on the like the dashboard, like up here by the windshield. And I like this one because you can see the star flare effect on this car. If I go to 200%, you can see it a little better. So you see the star flaring? So because of the 9-blade aperture, you'll get like 18, you know, stars coming off and in certain situations, and you can see that here. And I just like this shot. It's just a silly shot out the front, you know, window there, but still, I kind of liked it, and it shows you what this lens can do. This one, I decided to slow the shutter down, so I put it at f9, and you can see now I'm at 1/15th of a second shutter speed, and what that gives you is this really cool motion blur, so it looks like you're zooming in, like it looks like I'm driving like super fast sort of thing. And again, just playing around, having some fun. But I like that the 23mm gives you that wider angle view. So when you're looking out the windshield, it's more of like what the human eye sort of sees, you know, as opposed to like the 33mm, for example, would be a much tighter crop. And then, of course, you know, the 85mm would be even more narrower of a field of view. I was just taking a couple of abstract sort of shots, and this was like a rack that used to hold these old magnetic tapes, and I just like the way it looked. I ended up putting it in black and white. I thought it looked pretty cool in black and white. You know, it's like, what's going on in this shot? And here's just one of the back of a piece of equipment where we have to wire, you know, all these wires down. There's a color code and stuff, but I just like the way the depth of field play and also the color rendering in this shot I thought was a good example of what this lens is capable of. And that hallway from earlier, I just took a shot of the hydrant to show you some background blur. That's at f1.4. So you can see how blurry the background is. Here's another one. I just focused on this key on the alarm panel here. And again, you can just see how the hallway butters out. So imagine if you were taking a portrait and somebody's head was right here leaning on a wall. You can get some really nice background blur, like in an alleyway, for example, stuff like that. That's kind of what I was trying to simulate here. I have another shot very similar coming up. Now this one I thought was cool because it's just a water fountain that doesn't work anymore, but it had this cool Coca-Cola machine in the background. Look how that renders. It just looks awesome. You can kind of tell it's a Coca-Cola machine now that I say that, but it butters out so good that, you know, it really gives you that 3D pop on the subject, which is the water fountain, you know. Now, here's a shot I just wanted to show you off the distortion. You could really see it like very obviously here. This is actually a photo I took back in 2007 when I first started doing like professional photography and stuff. And it's pretty cool covered bridge. But let me just go into develop mode here real quick so I can show you the distortion. If I go down here, all right, so here's the distortion, right? So there's no profile in Lightroom yet for this. It'll probably get it eventually. But anyways, if you go to like plus right around 15 or so, 15 or 16, yeah, I think 15 is pretty good. Actually, maybe more like 14. Anyways, somewhere right around there. If you hit enter, you can do constrain crop here. I'm using Adobe Lightroom. And when you constrain the crop, it'll crop in and now your photo is fixed. So it's very easy to fix the distortion. It's not a big deal is what I'm trying to say. And you can see here on this photo that it did a good job. And it's a pretty cool photo, I think. Here's another one that I was kind of explaining if you had, you know, taking a portrait of somebody in an alley, like, you know, looking at the camera. This is a simulation of that, and you can see the background blur. I just focused right here, you know, as an example sort of thing. Now, this place, Wayback Burgers and Fries, I think it's called, or just Wayback Burger. We go there for lunch on Fridays, and they're excellent. They're right down the road from where I work, so my friends and stuff from work go here. And again, this is great because I'm just sitting at the table and it's a wide enough angle where just sitting at the table, I can get this whole cup and the straw. When it comes to using like a 33mm, for example, I would have to move back to get a shot like this. And so that's what's nice about using a wider angle lens. Now here's a shot of the burger I got. I got the double bacon burger with fries. And you can see here, it looks delicious. It looks excellent in my opinion. Here's just another shot. And here's one more. So that's what you can expect if you're going to do some food photography and stuff. I got more food coming, don't worry. Now, here's just a quick landscape shot. I actually have some video footage. I was on the Green Bridge, guys. It was freaking freezing out. It was like 15 degrees probably. I was so cold. But anyway, I got a couple of shots here. Here's one. And then I walked a little further down the bridge and I got this shot here, which I like. I take this shot quite often to test lenses, and it came out really good. Now, here's another shot I like to take just to exploit the depth of field. And you could see the background rendering. I focused right here, and you can see that background rendering is really good. Now, again, because I'm at like the minimum focus distance, you can see there's that little bit of green fringing there. So just keep that in mind that it does have that. It's pretty easy to correct that though. If you go down here and you go to defringe, then you can click like on the green, like right there, for example, and it'll pretty much get rid of it. So now if I zoom in, you can see the fringing is pretty much gone. So it's not that big a deal. It's pretty easy to correct, but it's just worth noting, you know, that it is there in some situations. In particular with this lens, the minimum focus distance is when it kind of shows more than other areas. There's another shot example I have in an extremely high contrast scene, but again, it's at f1.4, and there is a little bit of like red/purple fringing. I'll show you that in a minute. Now, here's my dog Buddy. You can see how big he's getting. In case you follow my other videos, you might have saw him more as a puppy, but now he's, growing up. He's like a teenager, I guess, and he's a really good dog. He gives paw and stuff like that already. He's so smart. Just a quick snapshot of my shovel handle. I just wanted to show you how the bush in the background renders. You can see a car back here. Here's a couple more of Buddy. I wanted to get the Christmas tree in the background so you can see that rendering, and you can just see how good this looks. I cropped in a bit on this photo. Here's another wider view here. You can see Jace in the background there. Here's another one, getting a little closer to Buddy. And one more. And here's one, he was like falling asleep. He's so cute. This dog is so cute. It's so soft. His fur is so soft. It's unbelievable. And here's one more where he sticks his head through the pillows. He looks so cute. So guys, I went to this pizza place. It's called Hudson and Packard. Unbelievable. This pizza was so good. Let me show you the sign. So here is the out front. This is what it looks like out front. Here's the Detroit Pizza sign. And here's the fringing up here I wanted to show you. You can see right on the bottom there's just a little bit of red fringing. It's not that bad, but I focused on the sign here. But anyways, check out this menu. And again, you can see that little bit of distortion there, like I showed you with the frame. I could fix that pretty easily, but I'm not going to do that on this photo. I want you guys to see what it looks like raw coming straight off. So what I got was the Firebird, and I got the Cutlass Supreme. So I got a half and half pizza. And then, they got Juice Bomb and a couple other drinks here that are really good. They got root beer, of course, and all that stuff. And I had a Juice Bomb right here. You can see what mine. It's delicious. Now, looking up in this place, they had these cool lights. I really like the way they look. So I just took a snapshot looking upward. And you can see the reflection of the table here looking down, which is so cool. And this is me right here holding the camera. But anyway, look at this pizza. I mean, come on now. This is ridiculous, isn't it? Look at this. So this is the buffalo side, and it wasn't that spicy. It was actually a lot less spicy than I was expecting, which is good. Even if it was spicy, I would have been okay with it, but the pepperoni slice side was also exceptionally good. You can see here if I zoom in, absolutely phenomenal. I wouldn't change a thing. These guys absolutely know what they're doing. They're in Poughkeepsie, New York, Hudson and Packard. You guys, if you live anywhere near this place, you have to go. It's one of the best pizzas I've ever had. It's like a deep dish, Detroit style, but it's not like all oily and greasy. It's just like a fluffy crust. Oh, really delicious. Here's just another angle. This is the one my brother got. I can't remember what this one was called. It had like that mozzarella cheese. That's like soft. I can't remember what it's called. Bugatti or something like that. That's what he got, and it was phenomenal. And he got the buffalo on the other side. So here's my slice. I'm just holding it up here, and you can just see how incredibly delicious. Cheese is melting off there, and that thick cut pepperoni. Really, really good stuff. Just a couple snapshots from outside of the pizza parlor, and this is again Poughkeepsie, New York. A couple street scene shots here. Nothing crazy. This guy had a pretty cool wing on his car, carbon fiber. It's a Camaro or something. So guys, on the way home, I'm driving on the road and all of a sudden it opens up and you see this as you're like driving past, and it looks like a portal through, it was so cool. I pulled over. There's like a little state park thing, and just a really cool structure, like built way back in the day. They have a sign here. This is a cool shot, I thought. Because it's a fairly wide angle lens, I was able to get very close to this sign, which gives you like quite a bit of background, to look at. So it's just a cool shot, I thought, and it's just a snapshot, but really has some good 3D pop, I feel like. So I took a couple of shots of this portal looking through the other side. This is what it looks like. Here I took an HDR, so this is a regular exposure, this is an underexposure, and this is an overexposure. So I had the camera set for bracketing. Now when you combine the 3 frames, this is what the HDR composite looks like, and I think this looks awesome. If I edit this a little further, I could probably really bring out some more detail and stuff if I want, but this is just what it looks like out of the HDR software. So here's just one of the sign up above here, and here's like the informational sign. So this is straight off the camera here. Let me just hit the auto button. I'll probably brighten it up quite a bit. There we go. So the testimonial gateway, it's called, and I guess it was built in 1907. So that's like the history. If you want, you could just read this and find more, information out. Here's another shot. I just thought this hairpin turn going up to 4455 by Lake Minnewaska. If you guys are familiar, you probably remember this turn. Super sharp hairpin. I remember going around at my motorcycle back in the day, and you had to go so slow. It was just so sharp. But anyways, here's one with the car, just a standard frame, and here's one without a car, and this is an HDR. So again, I combined 3 separate exposures for this shot here. And here's another one of this beautiful mountain range just past that sharp turn, and I just love the way this came out. I cropped it as a panoramic, and it is an HDR as well. And here's the informational signs, Shwangunk Mountain region. And they got a lot of stuff going on here. If you guys are in the area, there's lots of stuff. This is the Mohonk Mountain House here. And just, beautiful. This is the Minnewaska waterfall and so forth. Really nice area. And here's one last shot of the pizza I actually got for Layla, so I got it to go. She got the PYK pizza, I think it's called. It was pretty good, but it wasn't as good as the other 2 that I had, just being honest there. So, all right, guys, so at the end of the day, I highly recommend the Yongnuo 23mm f1.4 lens. It comes with this cool little remote. It's way sharper than the Viltrox, which is the current competition. And the Sigma, I'm guessing, I don't know because I haven't used the Sigma, is, almost double the price. And it doesn't have like the aperture ring and a bunch of other features. The Sigma is probably just as sharp, might have a little less distortion, I don't know. But value for the dollar, this is definitely the one to get right now if you need a fairly wide angle, basically a 35mm effective focal range. That's what this offers on the crop factor cameras like the Sony A6700. Now again, you can get it for the Nikon and the Fuji as well. So all 3 manufacturers. At some point, Canon maybe will allow it. I don't know. But for the the value is why this lens is the best option. You get this remote. It has all the buttons. It's got the declick and click option for the aperture ring. And again, it's just highly versatile, and value for the dollar, it's kind of off the charts. Its sharpness is very good. The one main flaw I would say with it is the fringing, especially at the minimum focus distance. There's a little bit of fringing at f1.4 as well in like the real world. But if you stop it down a little bit, that goes away. It's also pretty easily correctable. In addition, it also has some decent distortion, but that's also easily fixable. It just is what it is. But I don't really mind that stuff because it's so easy to fix. It's nice when it's perfect off the camera, don't get me wrong. But the cost of this lens, you always have to factor in the cost. So again, value for the dollar. This lens is #1 right now as far as the 23mm go, in my opinion. So it is what it is. All right, guys, that about wraps up this video. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. Also, if you can give me a thumbs up if this video delivered like what you were looking for. And, I really appreciate it. If you have comments, be sure to share below. Also, below in the, description area, I'll have affiliate links and stuff. So I greatly appreciate you guys using those links as well. That's how you can kind of show support for the channel. Since I'm not taking sponsors and stuff. So the affiliate links really helps me out. I appreciate it. All right, guys, I'll catch up with you next time. Take care.